My dad's gut feeling. I was 17 at the time, and me and my dad had just finished our fishing trip, and it was almost midnight, mid-fall. When I was about to get in the car, he told me that he did not want me to sit in the front seat on the ride home. We argued about it for about 5 minutes, and he did not give any good reason to why he did not want me to. I gave up and got in the back seat. It was pitch black outside. When we had been driving on the main road for about 2 minutes, we saw a car driving in our lane. Right as we were about to collide, my dad swerved into the other lane, and so did the car in front of us. I heard my dad say, "I knew it," at the very last second, and then I blacked out. Woke up when the police showed up at the scene. They helped me out of the car. I was barely conscious and don't remember much after that. Only thing that is still crystal clear memory is that I saw my dad sitting in the car waving at me with tears in his eyes. When I later asked where my dad was, I was told that he had flown out of the car window and landed only a few feet from the car and passed away later in the ambulance. I was told the man we crashed with died on impact and also had a 17-year-old daughter in the back seat who survived. I still can't believe that this really happened. This was 6 years ago. I called my dad in his past about more than 30 years ago. I recently posted about me disappearing into thin air when I was sleeping, and my family couldn't find me, and when I woke they swore up and down that they have searched all over for me but weren't able to find me. This is not an update, but something that just happened yesterday. 3 days ago, I was having a conversation with my father, and he was telling me about his university life. Basically, my dad came from nothing. He had a very difficult upbringing and went to the worst school and high school in our city. When it was time for him to join university, my grandfather passed away, leaving my dad to take care for the rest of the family, as he was the oldest son. He took a wrong major because of the wrong advices of the people, and how he regrets that to this day. The second courses were taught in English, which is a second language for us, and how he didn't even know the language. My dad told me that it was the darkest times in his life, and he just wanted to run away and was even thinking of taking his own life. Now, very recently, he got his master's in English literature, and he was telling me that he didn't think it would ever be possible for him. My dad just recently finished this degree at an age of 55. The next morning, my dad had to drive to this town because his distant relatives live there, and they are struggling financially. My dad is a very kind soul, and he wanted to help them. The town is a 3 hours drive away. He usually takes public transport, but didn't because of recent crisis. He drove there, and my mom was worried, so we decided we will keep calling him after every hour to check in. Well, I decided to call him. Now, keep in mind, because its highway network signals get very weak. He told me to wait and parked at a nearby restaurant. It was like a checkpoint for trucks. I don't know what came over me, but I started crying and went on to tell him how proud I was of him. I just babbled and kept saying that he shouldn't think he is lacking because he is not. He was an amazing father and a great person to look up to. You guys, my dad started crying. He told me that he will talk to me when he returns. Well, he returned, and he just hugged me and was telling me that how 30 years ago, he was visiting the same town, and it was the time when he was at his lowest. He was visiting the same relatives, and he was in a bus which stopped at a petrol station. He called his mother, and when he picked up the phone, without even dialing, he heard my voice. It was me telling him the exact same thing which I just said yesterday. He said that he didn't even call my grandmother. He just stood there and cried. It gave him strength to keep fighting. He said he just now realized it was me whose voice he's heard. My parents are now taking this as a sign from God, who helped my dad when he thought no one was there for him. Something is wrong with my girlfriend. Me, male 26, and my girlfriend, female 25, have been living together in an apartment for 2.5 years. Everything has been normal until quarantine started, around 4 weeks ago, when I started noticing some odd things. For instance, for the last 3 weeks or so, my girlfriend has been putting sugar in her morning coffee, while throughout our entire relationship, she's always been very much against it. It may seem like a small detail, but she's always been complaining about how I don't know what real coffee is since I put quite a lot of sugar. On the first day that I saw her drinking coffee with sugar, I asked her why she would do that, and she just looked at me, weirded out, and said something like, "What are you talking about? I've always been putting sugar in my coffee." I felt a bit confused for a moment, but then we started talking about some other things, so I didn't think any more about it until the morning after, when she did the exactly same thing and had, once again, the same reaction. Fast forward a few days, and another odd thing happened. We were having sex and she suddenly suggested a sex pose that we had already tried once, but it had gone wrong and it hurt her a lot, so we had simply decided not to try it anymore. Naturally, I was very surprised with her suggestion and reminded her about the time when it went wrong, and she just completely dismissed it, saying that I probably mixed her up with some ex-girlfriend or that I was just tripping. We then did the pose, and we actually enjoyed it. Today, the weirdest thing happened, which is the reason I'm writing this post. In the afternoon, I was working at home. I'm employed as a PhD student at the computer science department of a university, when my girlfriend asked me what's up with a guy who I've never heard of before. I asked her who is she referring to, and she said, "Well, it's that colleague of yours who you always talk about, the one from the company where you are employed at." I froze, asked her to repeat, and she said the exactly same thing all over again. Then I told her that I don't work for any company, nor have I ever worked at any company, since I started a PhD straight after my master's degree. At this point, she also completely froze, and we were just staring at each other completely confused and shocked for a few moments. She then asked me WTF is going on, and I reminded her about the coffee thing and about the sex pose, and that I don't know anymore what is going on. At this point, she started crying too and asked what is wrong with us. Nor she, nor me, nor anyone in both families have ever had any mental problems in the past. We don't know what to do about this. Can anyone explain what's wrong with us? My 5-year-old son broke character and talked to me like an adult. This happened about 2 years ago, and I was so blown away, I took notes and told my wife about it, so I still have the notes on my phone. My 5-year-old son was pretty typical for his age. Always goofing around, never serious, always working some angle to negotiate treats or buying whatever thing was at the top of his list this week. Kids have a selfish worldview, and that's mostly understandable because they haven't matured yet. So when my son asked me to go for a walk, just the two of us, I immediately laughed and thought, okay, what's he going to ask for? We start walking and I ask, "What's on your mind, buddy?" He said, "Nothing really. I just want to have some time to be with you and be peaceful and be out in nature." Wow, okay, this is progress, I thought. Then he said, "I want you to know you're the best dad I've ever had. You really do help me and my sister a lot, and you're really very nice, even though we don't usually tell you. So, I just wanted to say thank you for everything, and that I want to be near you always." By this point, the only reason I wasn't completely crying my eyes out is that I thought it was some kind of a joke or a lead-up to ask for something. This was totally out of character, especially at this age. I managed to croak out something like, "I'm really glad to hear that, and I love you very much." Then we just enjoyed the rest of the walk. It really felt like, for a moment, I was speaking to a soul who has had several lives. You're the best dad I've ever had, and wanted to speak directly to me instead of play the role of a child. I'm so glad it happened, and it's something I will never forget. Later, he went right back to being the same old goofy kid that I love.